All right. All right. Sorry about that, folks. Show just cut out a little bit, but we're going to pick up where we left off. We're still in pop culture. Nick, what are your top 5 favorite movies?
That's I get asked that question a lot, and it's tough because I love historical movies, but I also love sports movies. So I think we'll start from five and go to one, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So my fifth greatest movie of all time has to be Titans, Denzel Washington. Um, I just love the overall story of that movie and the camaraderie of that and how that team did something special. Not to mention it's some hard hitting Virginia high school football, and God knows every kid growing up wanted to play high school football. I did. So it's it's a great movie to watch.
I have
Uh,
to say that is this movie's come up on this show. This is probably the fourth time someone's mentioned that in their top.
yeah,
So
it's a great
that
movie.
says a lot.
It's a great movie. Number four is gonna have to be now. It's a little bit of a more modern movie, probably early 2000s, but it's actually the movie Remember the Alamo
Okay.
with Billy Bob with Thornton in it. I really like that movie because I really like the story of the Alamo, and I think it's one story in history that gets overlooked because it wasn't really a true battle. It was just Americans defending this territory that they were so proud of, and the fact that because of what they did, that's kind of how we started to develop and gain the state of Texas. I think it's really a cool story that gets looked, but I think it's a phenomenal
I
movie.
think you're right because I've never seen that movie,
You
and
should. It's
I
on
think
a it's on a Hulu for anybody that hasn't seen it. Great movie.
I'll have to watch that. There's that, and I got a lot of crap for not seeing Coach Carter the other day on this show. So
Well, so I'll back you up on that one. I've seen Coach Carter, and I can say I'm not impressed. It was not. I don't think that was a good movie, but that's just me. I won't hate on it. My third favorite movie of all time would probably have to be, and I know people are harping on Mel Gibson as of late, but Mel Gibson in The Patriot
yes,
slash Braveheart because I can't
yep,
pick the other, but those two are probably three. Those would be my three because I Braveheart and Mel Gibson and the Patriot are just they make you feel this sense of pride and this sense of like yes, and they're just really well done, thought out movies. They're very long, but they're very well thought out.
yeah, I love both those movies. I own the Braveheart. I need to buy the Patriot. I just
Yeah.
haven't.
Um, Number two would have to be again might not be a popular opinion, but the Shawshank Redemption with
Yes,
Freeman. And that would be
yep.
number one if you didn't know what number one is when I tell you. But the Shawshank Redemption is probably one of the hands down best movies of all time, in my opinion.
Love it, love it.
And then number one, and it was actually just on ESPN 2 nights ago. Miracle, the story of the
Okay,
1980 men's Olympic hockey team. I just that to me is I think is the greatest movie of all time. I think it's just because it's a story of it's the last people don't know this. That's the last year that the United States Hockey Association used college players for their teams. After that, in '84, they started using NHL players. So at the end of the movie, Herb Brooks, goes, this was really the last dream team because after this team they started using professional athletes where this was just a bunch of you know Midwestern and then Boston kids who at the time hated each other because Minnesota was so good, BU was good at hockey, and these kids just they came to together because of one man. Herb Brooks had one goal. You didn't have to like him, you didn't have to do anything, but you were going to respect him, and he was going to make sure that you earned it. And that to me was just that man. And I know this is a topic for a whole another argument, but that man might be one of the top five coaches of any team of all time. I think.
Yeah, that's quite the story. Miracle is quite the story because no one expected them to win
Right.
either,
And
and
if
it's a true story, which makes it the best thing about
exactly,
it.
and if you watch it at the very beginning when he pulls his 26 guys in from Colorado, he comes in and says, "Well, gentlemen, they got off easy. I won't be your friend. I'll be your coach." And that to me is one of the most bone-chilling things I've ever heard because that's true. You know, don't be their friend. Be that hard ass, and that to me is it was cool. So that's my top five.
Good movies. Like I said, the only one I haven't seen is the Alamo one, but I definitely need to. That's going to bring us into sports, and we got quite a few Let
Yes.
Freedom Ring fan questions and comments. Um, First one from my buddy Frank, we call Flacco, big softball player. I'm not even going to try to say Frank's last name, but um, he said this sounds like it's going to be a great interview. Now, Frank is also a diehard Cubs fan. That's where he's originally from,
Yeah.
and then ended up
Well,
here in New Hampshire.
we are a bunch of crazy people, so
Yeah, I think he partied for like the next like every day for the next week after the Cubs won the World Series.
oh
So
yeah, I was in college that year. I was a senior in college, and for the whole week after, I didn't go to class once. We were doing a lot of stuff that we shouldn't have been doing, but it wasn't class. That's for sure.
I mean, honestly, if you would have told me when I was a kid that the Red Sox and Cubs would win World, I'd see them both win World Series. I probably wouldn't have
I
believed
probably
it.
told you the same thing. I probably told you that you're crazy. Seeing the
You
Red
know.
Sox Cubs win the World Series.
Yeah, I do think there is a bond between Red Sox fans and Cubs fans
I agree.
because of those years of struggling. And I mean, both have the two most historic fields, stadiums still.
Right.
Fenway Park and Wrigley. So,
And
um,
I have no hate for Red Sox fans either. And I actually growing up, I was a diehard Cubs fan, still am. But the Red- but the Red Sox were almost like my American League team. I loved Trot Nixon, Veritek, Bill Miller, Mark Bellhorn, Doug Mankiewicz, Pedro, Big Poppy, Manny being Manny, Johnny
yeah,
Damon, and it goes on, and I think I can say for everybody, unless you're from New York, the Yankees are the evil empire. Nobody wants to see the Yankees do well. So when the
no.
Red Sox finally took it to them and oh you know oh 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 04 man, me as a 9-year old was like, man, screw the Yankees, do it. Like, good for you guys.
There was a time in my life where I had absolute hatred for the Yankees. Like if I saw someone with a Yankees hat, I'd automatically have an opinion on that person. To be
Yeah,
honest. In the early 2000s. I was on the Ad Hominem podcast the other day, and they asked me point blank. They said, "What team do you hate?" And without even thinking, I said, "New York Yankees." They're like, "But any sport." I go, as much as we all love football,
yeah,
right? There ain't a rival to the Patriots that I hate as much as I hate the New York
right.
Yankees. You know
And
what I
that
mean?
and that's what I tell people too. People ask me that same question, and without a drop of the hat, the St. Louis Cardinals,
Yep.
because those did they they just make my skin boil. And now, and people ask me, well, what about the Green Bay Packers? And again, I love football as much as anybody else, but the Cubs have been my heart and soul for years, and to see St. Louis just year after year screw us just hurt. And then actually in 2015 when the Cubs came when they did this magical nobody thought they were just quite you know there, and they surprised everybody and they won 97 games, beat the Pirates in the one game playoff to play the Cardinals
I
in the
remember that. Yeah.
funny story about that. So the Cubs are up 2 games to one. My buddy and I had just watched the you know the we just watched the game in our our dorm room, and he looks at me and he goes, dude, the Cubs have a chance to go to the pennant at home, and we'd beat the Cardinals to do it. let's go. And so I know I said I'm in. So the game is next day. The 3:10 start on like a Tuesday. So we found cheap tickets. We both skipped our classes, drove down, and I'll never forget where I was sitting when I saw Hector Rondon strike out that last batter, and the Cubs had beat the Cardinals in a playoff series to go to the pennant. And that to me was almost as surreal as winning the World Series because we finally beat the evil empire of the St. Louis Cardinals. For years we were their baby brother, and for years we could never do it. And we finally, did it, and I was there, and it brought tears to my eye. That was the greatest day of my life until I saw the Cubs win the World Series.
Yeah, there's nothing like baseball rivalries too, and I have to say, as much as I do also hate the Yankees, I love Derek Jeter. I love Rivera.
Much
Like
respect for both of them.
you without sports rivalries, sports aren't quite the same.
Right.
And you just grow to love those players. Like even when it comes to football, like people
Yeah.
dog on Peyton Manning. I like Peyton Manning. I didn't like him when they played, but you need that rival. Do you know what I mean? Like you need,
Yeah, I was
you need those.
growing up, I always respected, Chris Carpenter,
New Hampshire guy too.
Adam Wainwright. I respect Mike Matheny more as a player. I didn't like Mike Matheny, Mike Matheny as a manager, but he's out of the game now, and it is what it is. But guys like Scott, Rowland, Albert Pujols, even though there's the debate on if Pujols was a cheater or whatnot. I don't care. For ye
Yeah.
for years, it was fun to watch Albert hit just moonshots because you were like, we went from Maguire to Pujols, and you're like, holy crap, dude, these guys are just hitting tanks out there, and it's like,
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. Speaking of that, I'm not sure if you saw, but ESPN has bumped up their 30 on the summer of the '98, and
Yep.
I'm so excited for that. I think that is the greatest home run race of all time, and Mantle and Maris are number two. And I know that's going to get a lot of flag because of steroids and all that. But what Sosa and Maguire were able to do in '98, and everybody saw that on TV. That was awesome. But the problem with Maris and Mantle is that nobody outside of that if you didn't go to the game, you didn't see what happened.
Yeah.
You know all of America watched Slam and Sammy and Mark, Big Daddy Mac hit just monster shots.
Yeah, they I can't wait for that documentary because I remember as I'm dropping stuff in my little shout out to Mark McGuire right here.
Yep.
But that did start to bring the fans back. I think a lot of the problems with the Maris and Mantle race, if you've ever seen 61,
I have, which is also
fantastic.
It's my top 10 probably, not my top 5, but it's right there.
They spent a lot of time trying to discredit that race, which was stupid because from a business point of view, why would you not want people invested in that?
Yeah, so watching the movie, it kind of makes me angry because at first they try to pin Maris and Mantle against each other, and then they start to bring up the argument, well, they did it in 154, so anything that you hit after that should have like an asterisk. And I don't believe that. I think the records are meant to be broken. The only record I really didn't like to see broke was when Barry Bonds did it, but I have a very controversial opinion on Barry Bonds because I think Barry Bonds is an absolute jackass, and I was really upset when he broke that record because Hank Aaron worked so hard in the the '70s over and all the racial adversity that he had to overcome. So I wish that would have stayed Hank Aaron's thing for a little while longer. But like I said, all things are meant to be broken and come to an end. So, but I'm really excited for that '98 documentary.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. It is gonna be awesome. Next question from my buddy Pat Susi wants to know: Dak Prescott deal, 175 mil for 5 years. What do you
Now,
think? I
is
believe
that
he
confirmed yet?
rejected it.
I was gonna
Huh?
say I think he rejected that deal, and if I'm Dak, I'm kicking myself because I would have took that deal and ran with it
Oh, jeez, of course. I
because
can't believe.
the guy that they just brought because the backup that they just overpaid, in my opinion, can still play even though he's awful. And if people don't know, the Dallas Cowboys brought in Andy Dalton on a 7 year a $7 million deal. I'm pretty sure like it was,
Yeah, I
but
couldn't believe that.
but and but Andy Dalton can take that team to 8-8, which that's what they went last year with the Dak. Dak. I think Dak's got the talent and the ability. However, I think he's being a little selfish right now and holding out for more, more money. But the interesting thing that started to crawl into my head, and this might, get you, all riled up is what if Dak doesn't take that deal, becomes a free agent, and all of a sudden Jarrett Stidham flags out and Bill Belichick comes calling to Dak Prescott?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. We'll have to see what. The thing is, the uncertainty of the quarterback position for the Patriots right now.
Yeah,
Who knows? I mean, Prescott, he's had some glimmers of looking great,
yeah,
but the fact that the Cowboys, I mean, that division was
it's just
hard to
bad.
watch last year.
Bad.
Like you're like, for 1 minute, it's like, how do the Cowboys not win this division?
Yeah,
And they like just kind of handed it. It felt like they just handed it to the Eagles.
they did because the Eagles won that division with a receiving core of guys that had played a total of 20 games, with like two touchdowns, like passes. So, my other thought was that Dak might be holding out to see how the first year of Mike McCarthy goes. I know you
True.
have, but for years I watched Mike in Green Bay, and I have to say I think I think he's an overrated coach that just got lucky with Aaron Rodgers. Fortunately.
I have a lot of Packers fan friends that feel the same way.
Yeah, I think Mike McCarthy is going to do awful in Dallas, and that might also be why Dak is waiting and seeing how he, gels with with him before he, goes out and signs a long-term deal. So in that aspect, that's smart, business move. You just run the risk of, getting hurt and not having any guaranteed money. So we'll see. But and again, who knows if there's even going to be and football in 2020. So
Yeah. There's that's I hate that uncertainty
I
because
know,
it's a fun time of year.
yeah, it is.
Um, my friend Greg Konopka, who's been on the show as well, aka G Skills. Um, thoughts on Steve Bartman in the 2003 season?
So I saw that comment that guy posted, and I want to say, first of all, I hate you for that. But second of all, that's a topic that for a while, for a lot of years, I didn't talk about because Steve Bartman made me so angry as a kid. But then when you finally get older and you watch the ESPN 31st, 30, catching hell, which is about the about the '03 Cubs.
I need to
That
watch that. That
yeah,
sounds like a
it's
good one.
phenomenal. But that you know, watching that as a as an adult, you really understand that that wasn't Steve Bartman's fault, and that man was just trying to do and what any normal fan would do. Because after that happens, Alex Gonzalez gets a routine double play ball hit to him. He bobbles it. Okay, no big deal. Then the Marlins score four more runs, and then they win, that game. And then we go to Miami, and then we come back, and that. But the Steve Bartman thing really took the life out of the Cubs, I think, and I don't think they ever really recovered after that because, like I said, up until that, up until 2006, 15, 16, the Cubs were expected to screw up every year. Whether they had the best team or not, because they were the lovable, losers, the curse of
The goat.
yeah, all that crap. So it was just expected, and I think that was just one more notch in the belt of crappy expectations. So I don't hate Steve Bartman anymore. I actually feel bad for Steve Bartman, and I think in due time, the Cubs will recognize him and bring him back as a fan.
They
As
should.
a fan
I,
name.
I
Fun
I also
fact:
feel like
the
I also
seat
feel
that
like too. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah, no, it's fine. The seat that he sat in after that, they took out and still have never put back. So there's just an empty spot where that seat was.
Do you feel that if Moises Alou didn't react the way that he did, would it have been as big of a story? Because
No,
Moises
it
Alou flipped the freak out
no, it would have
after
been
that.
it would have been no big deal. And even if Bartman, if you watch it again, and if you watch it in slow, slow time, even if Bartman, he doesn't put his, hands out, I don't think Alou catches that anyways. So I think Moises overreacted, and I also think that because the game was on national TV and they just
Yeah.
replayed that over and over and over, that's really where the hatred for Steve Bartman, comes from, from because, like I said, 10 times out of 10, any Cubs fan or any fan, period, they see a ball, coming at them, they're like, holy crap, I'm gonna get
Yeah.
a ball. So, like I said, I used to hate him. I don't anymore, and I hope in due time people can forgive that man because that man had pretty much that man had to quit everything, his job, his life. He had to go into the witness protection program, and his
It's
life pretty much
crazy.
got ruined.
Yeah. Over sports. Like, and I love
Smart
sports,
man
but
too,
let's not ruin a guy's life
right?
something like
Right,
that.
and that's essentially what happened. They ruined his life.
Got a few questions from your dad, Joe Cappa.
Oh, great.
2000, he put 2016 Cubs versus the 2003 Cubs. Which team was better? And then he wrote Sans Bartman, which I wasn't sure what Sans Bartman
I,
meant.
I think my dad was. I think he's going a little bit crazy here. But no, we had this talk this morning, and while I love the 2016 Cubs, I will forever that team will forever be my team. The 2003 Cubs I think is the greatest Cubs team of all time that never did anything or that never won a ring. I mean that team from top to bottom with Sosa, Kenny Lofton, Eric Karros, Mark Bellhorn, Paul Bacco, Mark Pryor, Kerry Wood, man, Matt Clement, the Mad Dog, Greg Maddux, man. That team
Yeah.
was so fun to watch, and that team was that was the first year that broke my heart as a Cubs fan because up until then I wasn't old enough in '98 when they won when they made it to the playoffs. So '03 was really my first taste of Cubs postseason baseball. We were so close. We were 5 outs away from going to the World Series, and then it all just fell
Well,
apart. So
think about this too. It that year, Red Sox fans' dreams crushed. Cubs fans' dreams crushed. Could you
right.
imagine what that World Series could have been?
Yeah,
You know,
could have been the
um,
that could have been the holy grail of sports.
seriously, you
Sports,
know.
but I now from a offensive standpoint, the 2016 team probably has a little more a little more fu- you know firepower. But again, the game has evolved so much, between oh 03 and 16, 16 that I have trouble comparing them because it's two different ages of baseball.
No, I agree. I agree. And Joe also had another question. Where should the Bulls go from here?
Well, actually, the Bulls finally are doing what they needed to do, which was long overdue. They got rid of Garpax. They fired Gar Gar Foreman, who was trash. They basically gave John Paxson a role where he doesn't do anything, but he makes a bunch of money because they were tired of him being a a a voice. They brought in some guy from Denver. I forget his name. He's it's a very it's a very unorthodox name, but he's supposed to be one of the best GMs in the league. They cleaned up and they brought in that a GM from, or not the GM, the assistant to the GM from Philadelphia, Mark Eversley. They got a great core. Colby White, I think, has surprised everybody. Coming out. I know at the seventh overall pick, people were a little concerned, but I think he's held his own. Zach Levine, guy's a beast. I mean, the Bulls would be dumb to let let him go. Otto Porter, Jr. is a great, liable young, a kid. They got rid of, Jim Boylan, who was pretty much a villain and was meant to fail because the Bulls were just, such a head case. The only piece I would consider trading is Lauri Markkanen, and I'll tell you why. Lauri Markkanen's got a knee problem, a really bad knee problem, but it's not bad yet, enough yet where he can't play. So I would get rid of him now, get the high that value on him, and be done. But I think the Bulls are going to be um, going on the right path here. Now it's going to take a long time to get back to what they were in the early ages, but the Bulls I think are eventually going to be back. I also want to say that hot take here: if Derrick Rose never tears his ACL, the Bulls might have done not what the '98, not what the Bulls of the '90s had done, but the Bulls would have reigned supreme from the 2000 and tens, I think, until 2020 because Derrick Rose was that good.
I don't disagree with that. I think he might have been able to beat that Heat team.
I
You know,
agree.
they
I think
were they
that Bulls
they
team was that Bulls team was set up to beat that Heat team where they had Derrick Rose, Taj, Joakim Noah, Ben Luol Deng. They had great guys off the bench. That Bulls team was ready to beat that Heat team.
Yeah, I would have loved that because honestly, as much as people think that I like LeBron, I do. I liked him when he went back to the Cavs, even though he beat the Celtics many
Yeah,
times. I freaking hated that Miami Heat team
yeah, I
with
can
a
stand
strong
that.
passion. Um, hated them
Yeah,
because they really ruined. I mean, it is what it is. The Celtics, yeah, they did some trades and they had a big three, but they're all older.
right,
The Heat put together a super team of these guys in their prime, and the fact that they only won two, that's
right,
it.
right.
It's
The
kind of
fact
crazy.
that the fact that and I really like to make this argument when people say that Heat team was the best of that generation. I tell people, let me just point this out to you. In 2011, the Miami Heat team, which was stacked, right? They lost to the Dallas Mavericks in the finals, and that Dallas Mavericks, squad, other than Dirk and what Jason Terry, I forget who even was at, their
I can't
point
even
guard,
think of the roster. I
but
can't.
Jason Terry
Yeah.
And Dirk handed you guys a loss. So don't tell me that you're a dream team and you're dominant when you get beat by the Dallas Mavericks and Dirk Nowitzki, and that's it.
I think the team of the 2000s to me, well, you got the Lakers in the early 2000s, obviously, but here's the most consistent team, San Antonio.
And
They could just squeak out these championships, and you'd be like, Jesus, they're back. Tim Duncan,
because
ah, he could
so
have been a
they
Celtic.
they it's funny that nobody ever talks about the Fab Three that the the Spurs had, and it's because they drafted all those guys, Tony, Manu, and then you know, you know, you know, you know, Tim, those guys weren't flashy, and I think that's why people don't call that a big three because they weren't really flashy. But that Spurs team could absolutely flat out ball for years. I
Yeah,
also
they don't.
give a
You
shout
know,
out to an Eastern, and there was a squad in the East, growing up that I hated, but the Detroit Pistons with back when they had Chauncey and Rip Hamilton, Ben Wallace, Rasheed Wallace, Tayshaun Prince, those guys, that team could flat out shoot the lights out and play.
there was a take from Carmelo Anthony that came out that he said if he was a Piston, they would have won more championships.
Well,
I think he's getting to a point in his career where he's like, it's just never going to happen for him.
no, and I think he's mad about that because he's going to go down as one of the greatest players of all time to never win a ring. And in my opinion, because Carmelo can ball, he just never won a ring,
Yeah,
and it is what it
yeah.
is.
Unfortunate for him, but who do you consider the best coach that's coached in Chicago? This question's from my buddy Jared Doomling. Um, he had Phil Jackson, Mike Ditka. Or do you think it's someone else?
The best coach that's ever coached in Chicago. That's hard because, well, the 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 easy answer is Phil and Ditka. Um, However, I think my answer would have to be, and this is going to surprise people. And if you're not a like a hockey guy, you won't really understand this. But Joel Quenneville of the Chicago Blackhawks. So he took over in 2009 when the Blackhawks were crap. The Blackhawks were awful, just terrible. You couldn't even pay people to go to Blackhawks games that they had. And Joel Quenneville pretty much said enough of that, and then the rest is history. As where the Blackhawks won 3 Stanley Cups in 6 years, and
They were impressive.
that run to me is almost as that run to me is almost as impressive as what Phil did at the back half of the three-peat, the second three-peat. Now I know the Hawks didn't three-peat, but it felt like every year the Hawks could be in the cup, and then they won, a three, and nobody really gave Joe Quenneville credit because they were stacked every year. But that man is the second winningest coach of all time, and he just has a great track record. And I don't think he gets a lot of credit because like I said, it's hockey. It's not a big deal. While Chicago is a hockey town, it's more of a football and baseball town. So I think he goes by the wayside little bit, a bit, but I think he might be one of the greatest coaches of all time in Chicago's history.
I think that's a fair point. Consistency is important. It doesn't have to be a three-peat, in my opinion,
Yeah.
just to be consistent, a consistently good team. So, no, I like that take because I don't think a lot of people would come up with that. Next question from my boy Leo Connors, the host of the Ring and All Other Sports. What is your opinion on former Red Sox and Cub pitcher John Lester?
That's tough. That's tough. I love I love John Lester. I think the guy is if you told me I needed to give one guy the baseball from 2007 to probably the present, if you said give me one lefty, give him the ball, let's go win a game, John Lester would probably be in my top five. I think it would be Madison Bumgarner, Clayton Kershaw, Cole Hamels back in his prime, Cliff Lee, and John Lester. Five guys, I would say I'll take them. I love how John battled cancer, and he battled it all to come back and be an MLB player. And I really credit John for bringing the spark to the 2016 you know Cub Cubs. Also, and this wasn't in your in the comments, but it sparked my thought. Another former you know Red Sox slash Cub pitcher was John Lackey, and
Yes.
I think John Lackey and John Lester were my two favorite Cubs of 2016 because John Lackey had this no bullshit. I'm not playing games. We are gonna win this thing, and that's it. And I think John piggybacked off of that, and John carried the Cubs to the rest is winning it all.
They also survived chicken and beer,
That's true.
which was, to come back and do what those guys did. Um, Last question from the fan questions from my friend Josh Patton wants to know what's the difference between a Chicago Cubs fan and a Chicago White Sox fan?
Oh, it's funny. So Chicago is divided into two. There's the north side and the south side. The south side is, statistically where a lot of, White Sox fans, are because the Sox play on the, the south side. Uh, Growing up a Cubs fan, we'd always maybe, make fun of them and say that there was more, drive-bys than line drives, going on out outside of Comiskey. But in all honesty, I got no hate for you know, Sox fans because they're not in our division, that they're not in our league. The Crosstown Classic is great. I love it every year, but at the end of the day, we're all still we all still lived in Chicago in Illinois, so no hate. I did cheer though, however, for the Houston Astros in 2005 because I simply refused to cheer for the Chicago White Sox. But again, no hate.
All right, good, good. Quick, I don't want to spend too much time on this. Who you got, Woods and Manning or Michelson and Brady today?
Oh God, I gotta go. Uh, Lefty and Brady. I gotta do it. I love Lefty. Love
That's it.
Phil.
I don't watch a lot of golf, but I'm very interested to see this.
I am too.
What's your take? Now we both enjoyed this series. It was very well done. The Last Dance. What's your take on it? What was your favorite part? Overall, what's your thoughts on the documentary?
So overall, great documentary. I think it was phenomenal. Obviously, it wasn't. So what a lot of people who don't live in Chicago or don't know what the Bulls were growing up was that Michael had a final cut on that documentary. So there's a lot of things that didn't go into that because Michael simply didn't want people to know. But overall, great documentary. And actually, my favorite part was the story of Steve Kerr. Um,
Mm,
I, I really found that to be humbling, and I really found that the fact that Jordan and Steve Kerr had respect was because one day Steve Kerr in practice said, "I'm not taking your crap anymore," and got in MJ's face. And while he took a cheap shot, Steve Kerr, I think that that day earned Michael's respect. And let's not for let's not for you get that Steve Kerr did something that Michael Jordan even never did. He won 4 rings in a row because remember he
yeah.
went to San Antonio after '98. So no, great documentary. I loved all the behind the scenes, trash, talking and all that. I also really think it's funny that Isaiah Thomas wasn't on the '92 Dream Team because of Michael, Scotty, Magic, and Bird, and all those guys that didn't, really, appreciate Isaiah Thomas. Um, but overall, yeah, I wish there was more. I wish they could have done a 20 part, thing because there's just so much.
Yeah, it took me back to my childhood and really I forgot how big of a deal it was when Jordan went to go play baseball. Like, where the hell did that come from? You know what I mean? Like, and then when he came back and everything, it just I enjoyed everything, and it also reminded me how freaking cool Dennis Rodman was back in the day.
Yeah.
That
Dennis,
guy did everything.
you know, Dennis Rodman. Dennis Rodman might be the only NBA player to ever ask his coach if he could go on a trip to Las Vegas during the season, and Phil had to go ask Michael and Scotty if it be if it was okay, and they do. And then Phil calls Jordan and says, "Can you go to Can you go to Can you go to Vegas and pick up Rodman because we got a game to play." And I think it's
Could you
crazy. And I think it's crazy that Dennis Rodman was really one of the only NBA players that was allowed that much freedom because on the court, I don't think there's ever been a better defender or tough guy or rebounder than Dennis Rodman. I think he really doesn't get enough credit for his basketball skills because of his off the court escapades.
I remember when he showed up on Nitro too during the finals,
Oh
and
yeah,
and as a kid I was like, oh, that's kind of weird, but I didn't think it was like a big deal,
yeah,
And then looking back as an adult, it's like no player would ever do something like that.
right.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. My favorite player growing up was Scottie Pippen outside of the Celtics. I know a lot of people say, well, Scottie showed some weaknesses in the deck. That's fine. I still like
Yeah,
Scottie.
yeah,
And you need a number two,
right.
to Jordan.
And I think Scotty did just fine for the contract that he was, given, and how Jerry Krause really viewed Scotty. I don't think Scotty did too much or too little. I think Scotty just did what Scotty had to do, and a lot of people that hate on Scotty forget that the year that Jordan was gone, the year he was gone, Scotty almost took that team to the finals on his own. He almost took them to the finals by himself. So like I give Scotty, I give Scotty a lot of a credit. I know my dad being one of them isn't a Scotty a hater, but also crazy. You know, I think Scotty did what Scotty had to do based on the contract that he was handed and kind of how he was treated by Bulls upper management.
Yeah, no, that's a good take. I like
And
that.
And going back to earlier, I think it's so sad to see how the Bulls are ran today because John Paxson lived and died on those 90 on the the first half of the Dream Team. Like he was on the first three-peat, and Paxson saw how awful they treated all of them, and it really it really baffles me that Paxson allowed himself to treat the Bulls like that now. That's a completely different hot take, but I just wanted to get that out there.
Yeah, no. Well, sometimes, it comes down to ownership and they override things and stuff like that, I think. Um, what are so we kind of talked about this because I want to ask your top three sports moments. I know
Yeah.
that one is the World Series of the Cubs.
Right.
I think two was your being at the game when they beat the Cardinals.
Yep.
Is there a non Cubs related sports
Yeah.
moment that you really?
Yeah. Actually, so it's funny. It's not one that it has any sentimental, value or 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 anything, but it's a funny story. So Christmas Eve of 2017, the Bears were 5-11. That's the Bears went 5 and 11 that year. But Christmas Eve, the Bears were playing at home at noon against the 0-15 Cleveland Browns. So my buddies and I went online and we found $20 cheap tickets, and that's the first time we'd ever seen Mitch play because he got booted in when the whole Mike Glennon fiasco went on its ass, which not was surprised. But we were in the parking lot before we were tailgating and getting all crazy, and I ended up jumping through a table, and the video went so viral that I actually ended up on Barstool's the sports.
Nice,
So
nice.
it's nothing that's has any value other than for one time in my life myself went viral. So that was pretty funny.
That's awesome. I did go through. I went. My buddy's a big Buffalo Bills fan, and we decided we were going to go to Buffalo and mix it up with the Bills Mafia.
Yeah, that's
And
a place I would love to go for at least one game.
just know everyone in the parking lot's completely blacked out.
Oh
They
yeah.
don't. I had my buddy choke slam me through a table, and it didn't break all the way. And this gigantic Bills fan came out of nowhere. I stood up and he just grabbed me and just, put me right back through it. And I was like, "What are you doing, dude?" He goes, and he's just like, "Oh my God, I'm sorry. Because everybody thought it was going to be, an altercation." And
Yeah.
so I got up and I was like, "I'm all right." I said, "I guess sometimes you got to break through the table
I,
all the
I
way."
I guess so. I guess so. Yeah, no, that's funny. That's
Um, Yeah, it is fun there. The parking lot experience is
I
is a
bet.
lot of fun in
It's one of those
Buffalo.
that you just have to do. You just have to do it.
Last question: do you think sports return in any fashion anytime soon, besides KBO, which I'm enjoying?
So actually, it's funny. I was watching the ACL, which for those of you who don't know is the American Cornhole League. The
Yes.
American Cornhole League has been hosting their tournaments live, just with no fans. So that's been on the TV. So I've been thoroughly enjoying some cornhole. I can't get into the whole KBO. I think I miss American baseball too much, and it just hurts to watch baseball being played that's not the Cubs.
And it's
But
1 a.m. in the morning when the games are
yeah,
on.
well, yeah, that too. I can't stay up for that. But do I
Yeah.
think sports returns in some capacity in 2020? Part of me really hopes it does, and part of me is um, unsure. Part of me really thinks that America just needs to take a break for 2020 and regroup, not only in terms of the players' safety, but the overall, of the fans. Because what happens if you bring back the NFL, but with no fans? Do you then tell people the parking lot's closed? Do you have security? Like, how do you stop
It's a
fifty
good
thousand?
point.
How do you stop 50,000 people from sitting in that parking lot for hours on end, tailgating while the game is being played with no fans? Because in the age of technology, you could have a TV out there, a radio, you could be drinking and boozing and at that point, then it becomes a public health hazard because there's 50,000 people crammed into this space. They're coughing, they're breathing. There's no masks on. There's no social distancing. You know, I think if the NFL were to come back, uh, this year, that's a situation that they would have to tackle, and I don't think they're quite ready for how they would do that yet.
I think that's a very valid point. I think you're right. How do you keep people away? I,
Right.
I, I honestly I don't see baseball happening.
I don't either.
After reading what the restrictions are, I go, who could, how is this even manageable?
Yeah, and at that point, it would almost be like more of a chore rather than
Yeah.
it being a game, and it should never be a chore. That baseball is a game. It's a fun, it's supposed to be a fun 4 hour chess match, and instead if it's going to be if it's going to become a 5 hour chore and a hassle, I don't want to watch it.
Yeah. I think the NBA is going to get it done because if you go to Disney World and you just shut off and you keep everybody in there, they could do it.
Yeah,
Um,
same with the
but
NHL. I think the NHL could come back too, and that's cool and all, but like I really just I think baseball needs to shut that down. I think the NFL really needs to look at safety. Now, what intrigues me is that the SEC and other college you know power conferences are allowing their schools to start the voluntary workouts as of June 1st. Like, is college
I
football
saw
going to come back?
that.
Like, what if college
Yeah.
football comes back? Then how do you justify not playing in like the NFL.
Yeah, I don't know what their plan is on that. That's an interesting thing to think about too. Um, honestly, just going to let this play out, but I can't see anything besides the NHL and NBA happening for the sure fact that they don't have to do it very long.
Right.
They could essentially just call the season, go do playoffs.
Which is what the NHL has said that they're going to do. They are going to do a 24 team tournament, and that's it.
Yeah,
But what baffles me is back to the SEC is that the Alabama AD pretty much called the president of the NCAA and said, "You can go cram it. We're going to play college football in Alabama and in the South in the
jeez.
fall. And if we're the only uh, 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 conference that is going to play." He said, "We'll just play 12 games against each other for all week here." He said the NCAA will not shut down the SEC. And actually, I was doing some more in depth into it. The NCAA doesn't control the SEC for 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 for, for football because of how much money the SEC brings in. Like it's its own like private entity and like private whatever. I think, but it's just scary that the Alabama AD said you can pretty much go cram it. I don't care. We're gonna be playing.
Yeah, yeah. Love to see how this plays out, but yeah, that's dangerous talk right there. It's going to bring us into politics. I'm asking every guest this question. What does a good leader look like to you?
Oh, so that's funny. A good leader to me is somebody that, you know, has the ability to see kind of like a good, a good, a good quarterback, or a good, catcher, someone that could see the whole field, someone that can see, two, three steps ahead, but someone that's going to have your back, someone that's going to go to battle with you, someone that's going to be in your corner and do what's the best for the common, good, and someone that's not afraid to get their hands, dirty, but also not make people mad. I think people are too into this whole everybody has to be equality and that it's got to be fair for everybody. It doesn't have to be fair for everybody. It just has to be fair for the common good of the the vast majority.
All right, yeah. That then brings us to Joe Biden. Made some comments. He said, uh, basically towards the African American, the black community, where he said, "If you don't support me, you aren't black." Do you think Joe's
I I
not
have
the best thing to say?
I I really have a tough time with Joe Biden because I think Joe Biden's an old crazy kook. I think he's simply trying to ride out the Obama, coattail, and the fact that Joe's upset that he wasn't, president and it was Obama instead. Um, I I really I really was pulling for Bernie Sanders here, and unfortunately now we're stuck with these two evils. And I feel like we're gonna fall into the same trap we did in 2016. Where you don't want to vote for either, you know, e, you know, e, you know, e, either of them, but you got to vote for one of them. And I think that really screws over the American people. It doesn't screw over Washington. It's it screws over the everyday hard working, you know, American male or you know, fe- you know, female. So I think we're gonna run into the same pattern here, and it's gonna be a crazy November. And
To say the
it,
least.
I guess it's really,
Um,
I guess it's really gonna depend on if the coronavirus, virus makes a round two in the fall, from what they're saying that could be possible. So, if this comes back in the fall in the same capacity that it's here, now or it has been, I think that'll take a effect into who gets elected. But to me, it's going to be again the lesser of two evils.
no, I agree. I agree with that. It's a mess. Um, What would you give Trump for a grade on his handling of the pandemic?
I
A,
give
B, C, D,
I
F.
give Donald Trump a straight F all across the board, just for the sole fact that the guy's just a clown. I think. And he's already come out and said that if the second wave comes in the fall, he's not going to close down the economy again, and we're just going to have to deal with it. And that right there is a quality of a leader that you don't want. He's basically saying, well, if round two comes, everyone's on their own. And as a president, you're supposed to be in charge of all of us, and you're you're up here saying, well, you're on your own, have fun.
We lack leadership right now as a country.
That's the scary part.
I have to applaud most of the governors across the U.S. who have stepped up.
Yeah.
But it's just been like I've never, for a situation that we're in, you don't expect the president to act the way that he does, and people talk themselves in circles. And I'm going to have guests on here that are coming up that are Trump supporters, and they'll defend this, and they'll have their way of doing it. But
I don't defend either side, because I think the hard leftists and the hard rightists are unhealthy for America.
Yes.
There needs to be a nice balance, and unfortunately there's never going to be a nice balance, so we're never going to have that. But the people that are hard on either side make it really difficult for everybody else, I think, because they just want to talk and talk your ear off until you either believe what they're saying or you go so crazy that now they're in your head, and that's not good.
It's gotten ridiculous. I feel like as someone that's always considered themselves liberal, I don't call myself that anymore, because I feel like the word got totally hijacked.
Right.
Where liberalism is majority has been you're open-minded. You're open-minded to different things, but it's transformed in the way the right and left go back and forth. They always have to use the comparisons of the absolute extremes on the other side, and it's just such a waste for everybody that's kind of in the middle of thinking.
Yeah,
but
it screws everybody.
It is a mess. But that's going to bring me to my favorite segment of the show, blank versus blank. I'm going to give you 2 words, 2 people. You got to pick one.
Sure.
First, Jay Cutler or Rex Grossman?
Oh, smoking Jay, baby. Jay Cutler.
All right, 2 different kind of pitchers, but Kerry Wood or John Lester? If you had to pick one, you can only have one.
Kerry Wood, and only because I grew up with Kerry Wood. I'll never forget. I watched this highlight as a kid of his 20 Ks against the Astros, and I'll never. And I will always hear this until the day I die. I hear Chip Caray going, "Here comes the hook, 20 strikeouts. Kerry Wood has done it," and that to me will always stay in my head. So I got to go Kerry Wood.
I loved watching Kerry Wood as a kid too. Here's the hot button question. Gets a lot of people arguing. Michael Jordan or LeBron James?
Michael